Where to even start with this live letter breakdown? I don't think breakdown is really something we can use as a title. I think we'll just call this the overview of 6.2. So first of all, let's just quickly go through all of a recap, because that's what they went through. Additionally to that, it did start with the 6.2 trailer. The links are on screen there for your own region. Please go type those in, or go to the official Final Fantasy XIV YouTube channels and watch it. It is a fantastic trailer. But anyway, let's knock these out. First piece of information is that the release date, to no one's surprise, is the 23rd of August 2022. As most people predicted, with an educated sort of guess. And so look forward to the 23rd of August. 6.2's main features then, just a quick recap. New main storyline quests. Tataru's Grand Endeavor side story continues. Hildebrand comes back in 6.25, along with new relics in 6.25. The Omicron tribal quest is planned for 6.25. The Omicrons are confirmed to be Disciple of Land only, if you'd forgotten about that, so Gatherer only. We have a beautiful screenshot of the Omicron place here. There's in-game stuff in a bit we'll look at. The new dungeon is the Fell Court of Troya. There's a new trial, obviously, with a normal and extreme mode difficulty. The new raid tier Abyssos, and obviously Savage comes with that as well. Savage comes out 1 week after the launch of 6.2, meaning, of course, that if you want to give feedback on the official forums, whether you like that change or not, they are asking you to do that, so do so if you wish to voice your opinions. Other than that, you can enjoy the 6.2 release without needing to worry about Savage until the week afterwards. They have a nice screenshot of the raid storyline here that you can speculate about. Obviously, something to do with that particular crystal there. I won't talk about it because I kind of get the idea. Sephiroth Unreal is in 6.2. Obviously, Yoshi P mentioned how they've toned it down from the original because there are some things that people didn't get. So it'll be interesting to see how difficult that is. Duty supports in 6.2 mentioned for Snowcloak, Keeper of the Lake, Somol, the Area, and the Vault. That's getting NPC trust-like duty support features, as well as Steps of Faith is being made into a solo quest battle instead of a trial, and the Thorn March, Good King Moogle Mog, is being revamped completely. There was an image about this previously on the internet, but there's also PvP updates and job adjustments, which they don't go into any detail. Variant dungeons and Criterion dungeons are moved to 6.25, but Yoshi P actually confirmed that Island Sanctuary is coming in 6.2, so on the actual release date, which has been confirmed and is freaking awesome. I think you'll agree. Adventurer plates released from beta in 6.2 and come with lots of new additions, new poses, and other features, including the ability to link them to certain things, which is awesome. Different sort of gear sets and things, and for PvP and things. New tomes, obviously, is causality, new crafted gear, which includes full crafted set, the ability to request repairs from players in and outside of dungeons, combo sequence display in the action window for learning how to play jobs, which is wonderful quality of life. All that's in 6.2 as well. There's also rare materials added to ethereal reductions from miners, botanists, and fishers. The glamour dresser gets doubled to 800 capacity from 400, which most people, I would imagine, are very happy for. And there's lots of other minor adjustments to the Return to Ivalice questline, cutting out a few of the filler quests, like Making Bacon or whatever it was called, which was a really unnecessary quest. Preparations for the 7.0 graphics update are going into the patch behind the scenes. Included in this is the advanced implementation of optimized graphics processing. This apparently will help alleviate drops in frame rate under heavy GPU load. This is known as the dynamic resolution feature, and it will be coming to Windows, PlayStation 4 and PS5 in beta. This actually adjusts the resolution of the 3D graphics on screen according to the current GPU burdens. Enabling this in the settings mode and opting into the beta will allow to prioritize frame rate over resolution. So obviously there'll be more updates and information about that as we get closer. Job adjustments then, there are no major overhauls. However, there are minor adjustments to several jobs. They're saving that information for the patch notes, so there's nothing to talk about. This time, however, they are giving their intentions behind the job adjustments explained in those patch notes for the first time ever, so expect some lengthy explanation behind changes. Critical and direct hit needs to be talked about just very briefly. the adjustments. Actions that guarantee critical and direct hits did not receive benefits from buffs and debuffs that increase the critical and direct hit rates. To address that, their guaranteeing critical or direct hits will now inflict more damage as a result of such buffs and debuffs. So it looks like a potency increase to make up for that. And it's the same with the critical and direct hit adjustments as well. They're doing the same as crit. Now actions will inflict more damage depending on their direct hit rate. So it's kind of like going back in circles, but obviously people were a little bit upset about that. So that's what they're doing. PvP changes, so a new addition's Hidden Gorge actually makes its return, and PvP Series 2 will begin. The series will be filled with rewards, obviously, and the available rewards will be updated to allow you to get the previous series level 1 rewards as well before the end of Series 2. So you have until the end of Series 2 to be able to get the Series 1 ones as well, presumably through Trophy Crystal Exchange at the Wolves Den Pier, along with the new rewards that will actually be through the series leveling up as well, like previously with the outfit. Season 3 of Crystalline Conflict Ranked will begin. There will be adjustments to Crystalline Conflict from Season 3 going forward, they say. To make players give their all, they're actually adding demotions of rank. This will not be to all of them, but it does appear on this little screen here that it's only going to be affecting the last 2 ranks down to Platinum. Previously, you could obviously not D-rank, and it was letting people sit on their little pedestals and farm the points, right? This time around, they're resetting everyone down to Bronze 3 for Season 3's begin with 0 rising stars, a fresh clean slate. Final ranks will be determined by the highest tier and crystal credit score achieved during a season. Yoshi P is quoted to say, "If you reach crystal once during the season, this will be saved as your progress for rewards, even if you get demoted. Good and prideful players will not want to D-rank, so I expect players wanting to improve their furthest progress," end quote. Adjustments to the Crystalline Conflict matching is also being changed, so matching will undergo overall adjustments here and there. Apparently, enhanced matching will have dynamic adjustments, which makes it so that they take into things like population at the time of queuing, so it will actually allow you to queue with people depending on who's around, and obviously if there is a moment where those people are in a higher tier, it should probably still queue you if there's no other alternatives to make queuing more possible, which is brilliant. That's one of the issues I have with it mid-tier. Stricter penalties are also being introduced for leaving a match early. We don't know what those are, but I would imagine there's some penalty for doing that. The rewards for Crystalline Conflict, basically you'll be eligible to receive your portrait elements, achievements and titles for all of the tiers up to and including your highest tier attained during a season. So this means that if you got to silver, you'd be able to get the bronze rewards as well. It backdates as well from Season 1 and 2 as well as Season 3. So if you're worried about, oh, well, I got gold in this season and I really wanted the silver one, no worries, you will get that. Or if you got crystal, you will get all of the previous rewards, especially if you did that crystal in the previous tier as well. The Abyssos raid then, let's talk about PvE. We've got in-game footage. They show us this boss. This is actually Abyssos 1 on normal mode, known as the Proto-Carbuncle, if you translate that, which is Abyssos' first boss. It looks to be quite the weird spectacle, not like the carbuncles we are used to. Obviously, you're in a room here surrounded by death spikes and lots of interesting AoEs. There seems to be some kind of barrier mechanic and other stuff to do with, I don't know, is that ruby light? I'm not sure. The room is especially interesting as well, if you note the sort of arrow sections on the floor, these triangles. Very interesting stuff. Let's switch back out then. Yoshi P shows us the crafted gear, some of it at least. So this is the warrior, and then we have Reaper, then we have Bard, and healers with Scholar, and then casters with Red Mage. And then they show us the raid gear, apparently, which is Gunbreaker first. Then they show us the monk stuff. Obviously, this is, for those roles. Ninja, and then Sage, which is obviously your healers. Very interesting. Also, they showed us this, which is gear that they say with visual effects, quote unquote, for Paladin first, which looks absolutely incredible. Then they show us Dark Knight. And then finally, what appears to be a Samurai. They mention how their helmets and stuff are on fire and things. Very, very interesting. Yoshi P was asked throughout the live letter about this, and at the very end he said, since I've been getting asked, the gear from earlier with the visual effects is from the new raid tier, but they did not want to comment or clarify whether it was Savage only. So who knows where that's from, but apparently it's to do with a new raid tier. It looks almost as good as relic weapons and armor, so that's why I'm interested about that, but apparently it's from a raid tier. The Abyphos Mythos exchange rate. So previously you would need to trade 6 of your Savage books to be able to get your heads, hand or feet. That's being reduced to 4. This allows you to gear in Savage a lot quicker as a result of this. This was a conscious decision. It's not going to be applied to old raids and only for this one, and presumably going forward if feedback goes their way. So that should make it a lot easier for you to gear your Savage raid group each week. Very interesting and important change. The Omicron tribal quest in 6.25, they show us the area in the game, which is of course the restaurant at the end of the universe, let's call it. Yoshi B says, you've only ever seen the NPCs present here in a dungeon. If you have time to read the dialogues in the last story dungeon again, it might lead to a more immersed experience here, he says. The further you progress, the more different tribes and NPCs will be part of the story as well. It's too far from the Ephraite as well, he says. We've got you covered. End quote. You can talk to an NPC to move to the tribal quest location. So obviously if you don't have flying mount capabilities, you can teleport around. And there's also a mount reward. They actually show the mount reward from a new tribe, which is the space jellyfish. It actually sucks you inside of it and shrinks you down. It looks rather amazing here. I think you'll agree with that sort of universe background inside of it. Very cool stuff. Then they go on a little break, which is time for Island Sanctuary. And the first glimpse of that we see is one of the new mounts from Island Sanctuary, the Mandragora mount. As you can see here as he's walking around. But then Yoshi P pans around Island Sanctuary. This section of the live letter is absolutely enormous. They have more footage here than any other live letter that I've ever seen. And this island is huge. This place that Yoshi P stands, you have to develop the island quite a bit to get up here, he says. That top bit with the crystals. He then flies down to the beach, and the island is rich with flora and fauna that we can see. We can see goblins and apkalus, the penguins, all sorts of things. When you start your time in Island Sanctuary, someone will bring you here to this beach, and this is where the Island Sanctuary adventures begin. Yoshi P says, you will go through a sort of tutorial unlocking the various features. We didn't want to just give you an island, be like, hey, this is yours, bye-bye. You get there, obviously, through that side quest stuff, and the prerequisite to unlock Island Sanctuary is to have completed the level 90 MSQ of the expansion, completed 6.0. So if you were wondering how you unlock this, and if you could do it on alts, well, your alts will have to be level 90 and have completed the MSQ. Unfortunately, but at the same time it's a nice little reward to aim for, a carrot on the stick, if you will. You get very fast mount speed here, and there are no battles or combat content on the island. It's completely stress-free, which is their incentive for this, and to make you let your guard down and just relax a bit, casualized in environments. The NPC mammoths will guide you. This one is called Neko Mimi. This person will guide you through how to build on your island. You follow his guide, and you need to make tools and upgrade them to actually make materials to then build a house. The UI here shows how to do this. There's a gathering log, a material pouch, and so much more here, as you can see. Any items you gather on the island are put into the material pouch and not into your normal inventory, which means that you don't have to worry about bag space. Your island actions exist. There are separate settings, modes that you switch between with that little drop down three lines button, and there are lots of other modes as well, such as the ability to build and grow crops and things. The buttons grayed out actually unlock as you progress, as you can see. And Yoshi P explores the island and shows us around here. You can switch between those modes, like I said, and you get island experience from the gathering mode as well. This actually does not need external skills for any gathering class or anything. It is all role neutral. Everything on Island Sanctuary has nothing to do with the outside world, and everything that you need in Island Sanctuary is actually inside Island Sanctuary, so you don't have to worry about crafters, gatherers, fishes, or anything like that. Now that they have gathered items, as you can see here, you can switch to crafting mode. Yoshi P used this to create his hatchet tool. The next quest then makes a plot on the ground. With this plot, you can decide eventually what goes on it, and you can customize where things go in your island sanctuary. Yoshi P says these early buildings will get built instantly, but the further you progress, some might also take 12 hours to construct. Yoshi P then continues to build an island hall here. You can queue for content whilst you're on the island, he says, so you can progress whilst you wait for your queue to pop. And obviously the mammoths do all the work for you. You don't have to do any weird mini games to build here. And boom, there's the island hall. Yoshi P, and I quote, "These buildings will get more advanced the further you go, but if you like this design, you can actually keep it looking like this as well." The help guide is full of tips and will actually help you on everything you can imagine in Island Sanctuary. It's very well designed, as you can see. Yoshi P says your island can rank up. Gathering items, building things will all give you experience. The Sanctuary ranks up here with a beautiful UI pop-up and unlocks further developments and things you can do. Honestly, this is incredible. There is also an Orchestrion built into the hall. Yoshi P says the further away you get from the Orchestrion, the further away the background music will be as well. There are vendor rewards, as you can see from the currency exchange on the island. Yoshi P shows this list, and there's actually a picture here that he shows you of the suspenders, spade, and sort of hat on the back, one of the outfits. And then another outfit you can get looks kind of like Dora the Explorer's outfit with the satchel on the back there. It looks really cool, doesn't it? You can also get paints, materials, what looks like materia, mounts, minions. There are many, many things to collect and invest your time into. Yoshi P says this is Time Sink Island. I completely agree. The island also has a full day-night cycle, and it also has a weather cycle. Yoshi P then looks at the crop function. The mammoths cut down trees and clear space here to make room for the crop areas. These seed beds appear, allowing you to grow crops. You switch to the seed mode from that drop down, and then you select your seeds from the option, and you simply right click or interact with the seed beds themselves. Then you switch mode to your obviously water mode, allowing you to click and water on your crops. Yoshi P says you can leave these tasks to NPCs at the end when you have progressed far enough on the island. He says if you don't water your crops enough, they will stop growing. But if it rains on the island, that does actually count as you not forgetting your crops, end quote. So we have day, night, and weather cycles, and it was also confirmed in the previous live letter that some of the crops can take many days to actually grow. It's actually got a timer. Very interesting. Next, we look at livestock farming. The mammoths again clear an area that we turn into a pasture. Yoshi P says you will get a net to be able to capture monsters. Once you use them, you'll have to actually craft your own nets past the ones they give you at the start. Yoshi P goes off to the other side of the island to capture a creature using his net. He simply selects net mode in that drop down, finds the creature, targets it, and hits it with the net. Yoshi P says it will always succeed, so there's not any kind of worry of failing to capture something. They also mention rare creatures sometimes being on the island, so that's something to look out for, very Pokemon-esque. Then he takes it back to the farm and selects feeding mode, targets the creature in the paddock and feeds it. Yoshi P says you can raise the mobs here and gather materials from them as well. Of course, there are many monsters to collect. End quote. Very cool. And that brings us up to a level 3 island. And this gives us slots listed here on screen for the animals that can be fit into the animal farm itself. In this farm animal management window, Yoshi P says you can also check on the status of the mobs, and you can even give them nicknames if you so desire. Very cool. So obviously I'll have an island full of Bobs. Next, Yoshi P actually shows us the next stage of the island. The mammoths clear room for another 2 plots. The mammoths will use your script currency that you collect from gathering and building and leveling up your island to actually develop these new land plots for you. Yoshi P says that the hatchet will not be enough of a tool for the next stage, so he would have needed to progress to build a hammer and so forth, and then there are different grades presumably of those. And this is the minion screen. Very briefly, it shows where you can place minions. Of course, you can let loose minions onto the island. There are actually 40 minions that you can have. That's the cap on the entire island. Yoshi P releases a fat chocobo minion, and it flops around here on the island freely, as you can see. There are many different animals to find and catch if you wish. We saw in the footage dodos, little like cow creatures, you name it. And that's pretty much all it gives us, but that gives us an incredible idea of what to expect from Island Sanctuary. Yoshi P says this is not just done in 6.2. We plan on adding new features around every 2 major patches. You need to clear the 6.0 story to access Island Sanctuary, end quote, which we talked about earlier. So there we go. And then there's obviously a brief recap of what you can do on the island, but we pretty much saw of that. Yoshi P says here, we know this content isn't for everyone, but we look at it more from a perspective of us providing a new environment and players can enjoy it in their own ways, end quote. I completely agree. It might not be for everyone, but boy, is it detailed and it looks fun. Now we're moving on to variant dungeons and Criterion dungeons. Now we have footage for the variant dungeons, which is coming in 6.25. They show the recap slide of what they are. The most basic way to explain them to you would be to call them the Choose Your Own Adventure dungeons. The first of these dungeons, the variant dungeons, are story related, obviously, and is the Sildine Subterrane. The story will actually change as you choose paths, as you can see. You also get variant actions within here. These are duty actions, a little bit like Logos actions or something like that, designed to compensate for role imbalances. There are 5 of these. There are Cure, a Taunt, a Revive, and a Melee AoE, as well as a Rampart sort of damage reduction when there's tank busters. This means you could do a run with all DPS, for example. Variant dungeons actually allow you to queue in solo as well. They show in the game how to access this. Through the duty panel, there's a new option for variant and Criterion dungeons. As you can see here, you choose your role and which dungeon you're going to do, because there'll be lots of dungeons eventually. Nanamo is involved in this particular dungeon. These dungeons give you the new tomestones, which are causality, as well as the old astronomy as well. You can get the option to change the actions here, and you can choose 2 of those from the variant examples we talked about previously on that slide. This screen shows the story fragments you've unlocked thus far. To unlock them all, you need to revisit the dungeon and make different decisions that you made previously. So Yoshi P solo queues for this, but you can do this 1 to 4 players, go as a 2, alone, or obviously, full party of 4. Inside, then in the variant dungeon, you see 3 doors at the start. Now Nanamo will walk over towards one of them. This is different every time. You don't have to go the way where she chooses, and you decide, basically. The enemies are obviously scaling to him being solo here in this footage. You can also use his role abilities to make this work, obviously being a DPS, especially when things hit hard or when he needs to heal. Treasure boxes that spawn within the variant dungeons will be apparently personalized loot. So even if you're with 3 other people, make sure you click on your own loot chest. It is all personal, so everybody has to collect their own loot. There's a good variety of different monsters to deal with and lots of stuff to avoid that you're probably used to. Eventually we get to fight bosses en route. One route has 2 bosses apparently, as opposed to the 3 which is traditional for dungeons. Yoshi P says we couldn't have unique bosses for each route, but even if the model will be the same, some will have different mechanics. A lot of the mechanics will be things that you've seen before in the game, so AoE patches, exploding barrels, line of sight mechanics, donut circles, and much more. There will be a mount reward from doing the variant mode dungeons, presumably to complete all of the story fragments, which will be a flying ferret thing or a little rat. It has a Moogle Tom type, like Pom type thing on its tail, making it able to fly. It's rather cute. Apparently it's full of lore as well as to why it can fly, which another wonderful mount to add to it. Next, we look at Criterion dungeons. These are the level 94 player only high difficulty content. So you've got the normal mode version of Criterion mode dungeon, and you've also got Savage as well. So these are for only 4 players. You can't do these undersized. The overall structure and enemy strength is completely different, apart from being similar to variant dungeons. The route is actually predetermined in Criterion mode, and no NPCs accompany you. There is obviously, you can see from these recap slides, things like resurrections prohibited in a normal manner on the normal mode. Instead, you have a limited use of variant raise 2, which you can use. In the Savage version, all of the resurrection is turned off and all of the variant actions, so you actually have to go in pre-made with a tank and a healer and 2 DPS and fight your way through it like you would a Savage. Although apparently in the Savage mode, enemies become stronger the longer they survive, and all of the enemies will resurrect if the party completely wipes, which is adding another layer of potential salt to the situation for you to get sweaty and very cool stuff. In-game footage shows the normal mode of a Criterion mode, shows, as you can see here, when you queue in with your pre-made party, there is no choice here instead of doors in the variant mode. We have our single res here that's used, and as well as a debuff telling us that we cannot res normally. Yoshi P says these patrolling mobs are already very dangerous. You can't ignore them, and you have to beat all of the monsters before the boss will appear, so you can't skip mobs. You also might need to think about the order in which you pull them, because overlapping mechanics might easily wipe you, so being overzealous and quick is not always the good option. Once you beat all of the monsters, you get a recast of your raise action back, so if you needed to use it during the trash, you do get it back for the boss, which is nice. This is also, one of the bosses in the variant dungeons, but in the Criterion dungeons, this is a lot stronger. The difficulty curve is huge for normal and Savage above it. The bosses in the normal mode will feel like Savage floors 1.5, floor 3 and floor 4, he says, and in the Savage difficulty, not even the monster's attacks will have ground indicators. End quote. Very interesting stuff. He also says the Savage difficulty is definitely aimed at players that are going to clear the next Savage tier early, so they can challenge it with their good gear. The variant and Criterion dungeons will also get new instances in upcoming patches, and we do hope you enjoy them. And that's pretty much it for the in-game previews that they showed. Now we're back to PowerPoints briefly. There's not really much else they talk about. They show housing items, such as the straw beds, camping sets, portraits of the scions, all looking really cool. I'm excited to see those. And that's pretty much it. The final announcements for the live letter include announcements for the Japanese dates of the Eorzean Symphony 2022 or obviously concert. They also show an Elpis flower that you can get, which is merch that lights up. Interesting, I guess. We also have PAX Australia, which has a date of October the 7th till October 9th, where obviously Square Enix and Final Fantasy XIV will be in attendance. There might even probably be like a iBeat t-shirt. Who knows? I have no idea what they do. They used to do that anyway. They also talk about an Animal Farmyard stream that they're doing as well. Details are on the screen. Apparently they're going to be at a real farm in London, England, to show animals being petted. I have no idea. Please look forward to it. Also, new merch is worth mentioning. Paladin jacket. You can get this for about £78 with £3.80 shipping, I think, to my country. Who knows what that is in yours? Go click on the links, type that in, and see if you can get yourself it. It's Paladin designed. This is something that Square Enix have worked very hard on. I know several members of the staff who've worked very, very hard to get this to become a reality. And it looks amazing. Yoshi P wore it, including on the live stream itself. Very cool stuff. I would highly recommend checking that out. The Unending Journey digital book will be available to Japan only. This is kind of like a transcript of and a record of the Warrior of Light's past adventures, now written in digital form, they say. And that's pretty much the live letter. Obviously, the 23rd is just around the corner. Now we know that we've got Island Sanctuary, as well as a storyline, as well as a dungeon, as well as a trial series, an Unreal. Jeebs, there's a lot to actually look forward to. And then there's 6.25 with Hildebrand, a new Relic series. and probably a lot more that I've forgotten of right now. That's a lot to take in, and this live letter was very long. Excuse the long sort of digest of this, but I did want to include as much Island Sanctuary footage as I thought I could allow, as well as still be informative, so hopefully that scratched the itch. Yeah, thank you very much for watching. Hopefully this was as mind-blowing as it was to me. There's a lot to take in. I'm very excited for 6.2, as you can probably imagine. I will cover as much of everything they put out as humanly possible, and when 6.2 does come out, you'll be sure that this channel will have the latest and greatest from all facets of the content, as I can get through it. Much love, enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.